Hello there, well, this is Phillip welcoming you to the 1943rd edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper. Our dateline is Thursday the 27th of February, and I'm with you for the next 60 minutes with local news. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of trouble with our backup tape and master tape this week. Keith DeJersey and I were on duty down at Community House to copy the tape as normal, and unfortunately it was blank. So no Alan and Team D this week, I'm afraid, but you've got me for the next 60 minutes. And the items that I'll be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. Our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prilly, Fernand Bouillon, Harry Brewer, and performed by Jean-Jacques Perry, and is used with his kind permission. And local stories this week include police investigating unsettling discovery, and they knew about the dangers but did nothing, calls for inquiry into the effects of pregnancy pill. And Elvis has left the building. But first of all, special news items this week. And first, a big thank you to the Enfield Choral Society, who presented Diane DeJersey and I with a huge cheque at their rehearsal on Tuesday evening. The Society donated the takings from their Christmas concert to Enfield Talking Newspaper and Enfield Vision, who each received over £400. We're really grateful to the Enfield Choral Society for their generosity. A reminder from Diane that the Enfield Vision monthly forum meeting will be on Monday the 3rd of March from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Park Avenue Disability Centre, 65C Park Avenue, Enfield. And this month there'll be a special guest speaker, Lucy Whitman from Healthwatch Enfield. And now some information about Healthwatch in Enfield. It's a new independent organisation set up to ensure that people in Enfield have a real say in the way that health and social care services are provided. Healthwatch Enfield work by providing information and guiding people to the most useful services and support available. They put people in touch with the correct complaints process and or refer them to someone who can help them make a complaint. They listen to what people have to say about their GP, dentist, opticians, clinics, local hospitals and care homes, and feed this information back to those who plan, run and check services. They even have a place on the local Health and Wellbeing Board and the Clinical Commissioning Group, so they're able to influence decision-makers. Healthwatch Enfield believe health and social care services are better when they recognise the specific needs of all sections of the community, not just those that shout the loudest. Healthwatch Enfield say they've already received concerns from a number of visually impaired local people about the bowel cancer screening process and have been following these up with the relevant bodies. If you have concerns or feedback about a health or social care service in Enfield, please get in touch with Healthwatch Enfield by calling them on 020 8373 6283. That's 020 8373 6283. And some more notices for you. Barnet Borough Sight Impaired are holding their 20th anniversary AGM and an exhibition on Tuesday the 4th of March from 10 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. at Trinity Church, Nether Street, North Finchley, N12 7NN. The exhibition, which starts at 10 o'clock, will include stalls showcasing the latest technology, audiobooks and leisure activities, support and advice services, and arts and crafts created by people with visual impairment. The AGM will be held at 1:30 p.m. with light refreshments available all day. For more information, please telephone 07957 686 377. That's 07957 686 377 or 020 8343 3450. That's 020 8343 3450. The Enfield Library Service has purchased an iPal Solo for its libraries in Ridge Avenue, Edmonton Green and Enfield Town. The devices can be used to access any print materials from books to letters, so visually impaired people can pop into a branch to have a letter read to them. You can take your own headphones or borrow some from the library. And there's a large print user guide in A3 to assist independent users, and staff are of course available to help. If you're experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane DeJersey, our listener representative, on 020 8805 6578. That's 020 8805 6578, and Diane will be pleased to help you. And now, on to our first item of local news. A church warden has been left bewildered after a mysterious and gruesome package was found in the grounds of a town centre church. Jeremy Taylor of St Andrew's Church in Church Walk, Enfield Town, was left stunned by the discovery after being told that suspected body parts had been found in a box in the churchyard at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. A church warden for 5 years and parishioner since 1988, Mr Taylor said his first feelings were those of sadness about the circumstances of the find. He said, "I received a phone call at about 3:30 in the afternoon while at work, and I was very shocked and sad at the thought that this could happen in Enfield. In my time at the church, I have never seen anything like this, and thankfully everything has been cleared away." Police cornered off the church completely as their forensic investigation continued until about 9:30 in the evening. It's still unclear as to what happened, but the police are treating the case as a crime scene. Officers were unable to confirm the results of their pathology test as the Enfield Independent went to press. The historic church, with some parts dating back more than 800 years, is currently without a vicar and is traditionally shut on a Tuesday. Mr Taylor added, "When you're up for election, you're always told that one day you could be doing the drains, and the next you might be talking to the press. Now I've done both, but I was not expecting something like this. I was worried about our Sunday service, and I had thought about plans in my head, but now everything has been removed from the area, we can go ahead with our service as normal." Many of the crypts in the church's graveyard had been there for more than 100 years, and some drinkers at the nearby King's Head said the grisly discovery could be ancient remains. Eugene Gavigan, a Watermain layer who works in the sewers, said, "I've seen this before in my job. It's a common problem after a period of heavy rain. The graves in the churchyard are very old. When the rainwater blows, the tarmac, the graves fill with water, which can push the crypts to the surface." Others expressed their shock at seeing the forensic tent erected in the church graveyard. One man said, "I walked past on my way to work and didn't see anything, so I've got no idea how they got there. It's all been very dramatic." Another said, "If it's not to do with heavy rainwater or an animal carcass, it's a quite unsettling discovery." It's reassuring to know the police are treating it as a serious matter, though, regardless of what it turns out to be. A mother and daughter are calling for action over a drug dubbed the Forgotten Thalidomide, believed to have caused thousands of children to be born with physical defects. Chris Gooch, aged 65, of Carnarvon Avenue, Enfield, was prescribed pregnancy testing pill Primados in 1970 by her family GP when she made an appointment to check if she was pregnant. The pill she was given contained the same chemical hormones as those found in the morning after pill, but at the time she was simply told if she did not bleed after taking the 2 tablets, she was pregnant. When her daughter Emma arrived early in 1971, she was born with some of her fingers and toes only partially developed. Gradually, Chris began making the connection between what she had been prescribed and her daughter's disability. "They kept telling me it was a congenital problem, but I thought I hadn't taken so much as an aspirin when I was pregnant. I didn't smoke. I didn't do anything. The only thing which I took were those 2 tablets at the very start of my pregnancy." Chris learned that she was not alone in making a connection between the pills and her baby's condition, and she soon discovered other parents were reporting the same thing, and she joined the Association for Children Damaged by Hormone Pregnancy Testing. The first concerns were raised by an obstetrician in 1969. She presented the government with a lot of research papers, but they didn't act for 8 years, added Chris. At the association's annual meeting in Birmingham last weekend, mother and daughter heard that more than 40 MPs, including Health Minister Dan Poulter, are supporting calls for a public inquiry into the effects of the drug. Emma, aged 43, who lives off Windmill Hill in Enfield, told the Advertiser that she and her mum are demanding answers over how much was known about the drug during her 15 years it was on the UK market. "This should never have happened. People knew about the dangers, but they did nothing," she said. A spokeswoman for Bayer, which took over Sharing, the company which made the pills, said Bayer denies that Primados was responsible for causing any congenital abnormalities in children. Since the discontinuation of the legal action in 1982, no new scientific knowledge has been produced which would call into question the validity of the previous assessment of there being no link between the use of Primados and the occurrence of such congenital abnormalities. Elvis has left the ballroom. A panel of judges, including special guest Robin Windsor, voted a fun-loving couple's jive the best dance of the night at the grand final of Dancing Strictly for the North London Hospice last Saturday. Strictly Come Dancing star Robin Windsor was blown away by 16 dancers who gave a dazzling ballroom performance to raise money for North London Hospice. After weeks of training, 8 couples dressed up to the nines as they took to the stage to showcase their fancy footwork at the Millfield Theatre in Edmonton on Saturday. But as if dancing in front of more than 300 people was not daunting enough, the couple's every move was scrutinised by a panel of judges, including special guest Robin. Everyone gave it their all, but it was Till Pinney, aged 59, and Lillian Taby, aged 46, who stole the show. The crowd went wild as soon as Tilly set foot on the stage in his Elvis Presley-style wig and Lillian in her 1950s red and black polka dot skirt. They performed a fun-loving jive to Jackie Wilson's Reet Petite, scoring them 3 10s and 1 8 from the judges. Till and Lillian were announced as worthy winners and awarded their very own glitter ball trophy. And there's a picture of them shown holding the trophy, and it's massive. It's actually the size of a glitter ball, probably twice the size of someone's head. So there's both of them are holding it up aloft. And they said, it was nerve-wracking performing on stage, but I'd said to Lillian, let's just go out and have some fun. If something goes wrong, it doesn't matter. And that's just what we did. It's been a great experience for a very worthy cause. Lillian, a bank officer from North Finchley, said, I've never won anything before. It's amazing. It's been a fantastic experience. We've had some great support throughout and made great friends. Telling the Times and Independent series why he was rooting for the pair to win, Robin said, I absolutely loved them. They were pure entertainment. As Till walked out onto the stage, I just knew it would be good. It was really fun, and they made sure everyone had a good time and really embodied what the whole thing was about. The hospice is a great place where people can get amazing care, and for the community to get together like this and put on an evening to show their support is just great. Darius Bellew, aged 24, and his dance partner, Andriana Amorudu, aged 26, were awarded second place for their romantic salsa, and in joint third were 1940s jive master Bob Holford, aged 68, and Moira Hamill, aged 57, and Darren Kevis, aged 44, and Lorena Walker, 47, who performed an energetic cha-cha to Jennifer Lopez's Let's Get Loud. The event, which was sponsored by the Times and Independent series newspapers, raised more than £14,000 for the North London Hospice, which supports people with life-limiting illnesses. Judy Guy, fundraising manager at the hospice, said, the hospice is an absolutely wonderful place to be. It makes people feel safe and gives them their own choices, but we couldn't do it without the help of your donations. The North London Hospice relies on donations to raise 77% of the £7 million that's needed to run the hospice each year. New figures have revealed a dramatic increase in the number of ambulances queuing outside emergency units in Edmonton and Barnet since the closure of Chase Farm's Accident and Emergency Department. The statistics obtained from NHS England show that the number of emergency vehicles waiting longer than 30 minutes at the North Middlesex Hospital in Stirling Way, Edmonton, and at Barnet Hospital in Wellhouse Lane, High Barnet, has rocketed compared to last year, when the A&E unit at Chase Farm Hospital in the Ridgeway Enfield was still operational. Between the first week of December and the end of last week, the number of ambulances queuing for more than half an hour at the North Middlesex averaged 88 a week, compared to 12 during the same period last year. Since the closure of Chase Farm's A&E on the 9th of December, a total of 1,008 ambulances have had to wait for more than 30 minutes at North Middlesex. 12 months earlier, the figure was only 137. At Barnet Hospital, where residents from the borough may now be taken by paramedics, the increase was lower, with an average of 24 ambulances forced to queue for more than 30 minutes, compared to 16 last year. But during the week ending February the 2nd, 99 emergency vehicles queued outside Barnet's A&E, causing the hospital trust to declare an internal emergency and divert ambulances elsewhere that weekend. Hospitals are required to treat 95% of A&E patients within 4 hours, a target which the North Middlesex has met in 7 of the past 12 weeks, including the last 4 despite the increase in ambulance handover times. But Barnet Hospital has missed the target in 10 out of the past 12 weeks. Last week, only 86% of patients were treated within 4 hours. Alif Kazimoglu, chairwoman of Enfield Council's Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Panel, said, "I believe a number of factors have created a perfect storm. There seems to be a lack of ambulances, and they need to travel further, and there is a lack of bed capacity at wards, which is leading to delays at A&E, as well as a lack of doctors and nurses. Contrary to what commissioners promised, since the closure of A&E at Chase Farm, the situation has got worse and not better." A spokesman for North Middlesex Hospital said, "We are now the busiest A&E in London in terms of ambulance arrivals. We are managing this increase in numbers and the flow through our emergency department well, achieving the 95% 4-hour waiting target so far this year. We will continue to work with partners to ensure that our patients receive the best possible care." The Barnet and Chase Farm Hospitals NHS Trust were unable to comment before we went to press. And elsewhere in the paper, there's a large notice from Barnet and Chase Farm Hospital NHS Trust saying there is no A&E department at Chase Farm Hospital, but there is an urgent care centre where you can be seen for sprains and broken bones, minor burns and scalds, minor head and eye injuries, bites and stings, minor illnesses, and X-rays. The centre is open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. And it's at the Ridgeway, Enfield, EN2 8JL. The telephone number is 020-8375-1010. And it says, if you are worried that you are seriously ill or injured, go straight to the emergency department at Barnet Hospital or the North Middlesex Hospital. A leading councillor is calling on the government to support the cost of housing and education for families whose immigration status is unresolved. Aoife Orhan, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, has tabled a motion for tonight's Enfield Council meeting in which she raises concern over the growing cost of caring for families who've no recourse to public funds, often asylum seekers who can be left in limbo for up to 5 years while the Home Office processes their claims. While their status remains unresolved, the Council is legally obliged to provide social care, housing and education. It's currently supporting 105 such families with 164 children under the age of 16 at a cost of over £1 million during the past financial year. Mrs. Orhan told the Advertiser, "I am worried about these families. On the one hand, we have got to reflect on the potential cost to the Council, as we have a responsibility for all children in the borough." In her motion, Mrs. Orhan is calling on Council leader Doug Taylor to pressure the Home Office into resolving claims more speedily and for reimbursement of the costs incurred. She added, "I want the Home Office to take this seriously. They have to take their responsibility in reaching a decision more quickly, and when they have taken a decision, they must act on it. At present, no other agencies are taking over when asylum claims are rejected." The Home Office said that it already provides asylum seekers with accommodation and a weekly subsistence allowance of £36.62 per adult. The spokesman said, "We have a duty under the law to provide support to destitute asylum seekers until their appeal is determined. If their application is refused, it is right to expect people to return home." The number of failed asylum seekers claiming and being granted asylum support has more than halved in the past 3 years, along with the cost to the taxpayer. Enfield Borough Council's budget for 2014-15 is set to be passed this week amid concerns that government funding cuts have left the authority right on the edge. It's thought that between 2010 and 2018, 40% of the council's budget will be cut, leaving most departments under pressure. Cabinet Member for Finance Councillor Andrew Stafford believes the council is on the edge with its current budget, but is confident it can cope. He said, "Over a 4-year period, we've had our budget cut by about £80 million. That's 27% of the budget. The Chancellor has now announced that between 2014 and 2018, we'll have to cut the budget by another £60 million. That equates to about 40% of the current budget. The way we approach this is the same as we did last time around, and that is why we are confident we will make the cuts, but at this stage, a great deal of the financial future is uncertain. I think uncertainty does come up." Plans have been made to freeze council tax for a 4th successive year, and despite cuts, the Residents' Priority Fund will continue. Councillor Stafford also said the council's auditors were satisfied with the council's budget, but warned that a crisis is never too far around the corner. He said the only thing that matters is what the auditors say, and they have said there is no cause for concern whatsoever, and the council is robust and resilient. Are we going to have another crisis in adult social care, or have children without any books because of library closures? We are on a knife edge. Elsewhere, a £505 million capital programme from the council will take place over 3 years and will include an £80 million school expansion programme. There will be £50 million spent on housing every year, as Councillor Stafford described the pressures of temporary accommodation in the borough as enormous. The budget will be debated at the council's full council meeting on Wednesday. A band of protesters who have been blockading a controversial development site have suffered a setback. Protest leader King Coleman has been leading environmental campaigners in a blockade of the entrance of the site at the former Middlesex University campus in Cat Hill for almost 3 weeks. The group were able to stop lorries from entering into the site in Cockfosters, where developer London and Quadrant has started work on its 231 housing scheme. The protesters began the blockade because they believed the company was breaching conditions of its planning licence by beginning demolition work on the site during the hibernation period of the great crested newt, and that, contrary to planning regulations, no newt-proof fence had been erected. However, the conservation group Natural England, which imposed the conditions on the developer, has now granted a full licence to the company, allowing it to legally demolish all but 2 of the buildings on the site. Last week, the Enfield Advertiser reported that the licensing body had not formally responded to the developer after a compliance meeting on February the 14th. But this week, a spokesman from Natural England said, "Following a visit, we are happy that works can continue, subject to the terms of existing protected species licences." While Miss Coleman admits that any blockade of the site is now illegal, as lorries and demolition trucks are entitled to be on the site, the veteran campaigner is determined to carry on the fight, despite what she calls a little setback. She said, "I'm a bit disappointed that Natural England say that their purpose is to protect wildlife, but then they also say on their website that they want to encourage development where possible. How can both things be your aim? We do have other things planned, but at this stage I can't say any more about that," she said. And also on news about planning and new development, the erection of a 500-seater football stand on a strip of greenbelt in the north of the borough was due to be approved at a meeting of Enfield Council's Planning Committee. The proposal by Premier League club Tottenham Hotspur to build a spectator stand on their training site off Whitewebs Lane in Enfield was given the thumbs up by council planning officers, who recommended that councillors should pass the application at their monthly meeting at the Civic Centre in Enfield Town. Although the report acknowledges that the site, just north of Forty Hall, is on protected land, officers advise that the very special circumstances necessary to outweigh the harm to the greenbelt have been demonstrated. Officers note in the report that Spurs say they have to mainly build the stand for friends and families of academy players, if the club wants to keep its elite status under the Premier League's Elite Player Performance Plan rules. However, the report also lists objections by residents and environmentalists at the prospect of an influx of spectators and even more players onto the semi-rural site. It says the council has received 2 letters of complaint from residents near the state-of-the-art training centre saying employers of this company roar around the site in machinery whilst other employees kick balls around to the accompaniment of general brawling and shouting. They add, balls are kicked with force against metal poles and the noise causes untold misery to local residents. But the planning officer's report concludes that councillors should give the go-ahead to the proposal, subject to conditions, including suitable materials for the use of stands. Speaking to the Enfield Advertiser before leading a deputation to the committee, Jill Simpson, owner and manager of the village whole food shop in Forty Hill, said, "It beggars belief. In the report they say how important the greenbelt is, but then they go and say that the building should go ahead. They're contradicting themselves. This is urban sprawl, and the existence of the greenbelt is to stop that." And the newspaper carries some opinion from their website, people commenting on this story, and Tommy Harmer says, 500 seats would be a very small stand. It's unlikely to be as tall as Forty Hill Hall or Middleton House. And Harry from Enfield says, the fact that anyone thinks they could build the whole stadium there is crazy. Building a 50,000-seater stadium in an area with next to no transport links. A 500-people stand is very small. I was at the training ground last Saturday and thought, if anything, it made the area look nicer. Nick from Enfield said, "Laugh all you want, but this is how the countryside gets eroded, a bit at a time. Yes, it is just a training ground now. Add a 500-seat stand, wait a few years, and add another. Then use an adjacent field to provide more car parking, then build another pitch. And in a generation you've lost another chunk of Enfield's countryside, which you'll never get back." More than 70 business owners and members of the community came together at the Houses of Parliament this week to celebrate a community group's achievements. Directory group Love Your Doorstep was set up in 2011 by Emma Rigby and has brought the borough's community spirit together since the Enfield riots 2.5 years ago. On Monday, Enfield North MP Nick Dubois and Enfield Southgate MP David Burrows welcomed members of the group, as well as local business owners, to the Jubilee Room at the Houses of Parliament in Westminster. The group has promoted local businesses, and a video was presented looking back at the group so far. The video was met with rapturous applause, with some in attendance calling for the founder to receive an OBE for her services. Mrs. Rigby said, "I am ecstatic. The response from ministers was just what we were hoping. A huge thank you to David and Nick for supporting Love Your Doorstep and believing in us. Thank you to our wonderful community and the team I have. It just goes to show that the hard work, determination and belief can change things." They were also joined by Nick Hurd, Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Charities, Social Enterprise and Volunteering, who praised the group for their efforts to unite a community since the London riots. Minister for Skills and Enterprise, Matt Hancock, also attended the event. Mr. Dubois added, "When I walked down the streets of Enfield in 2011 after the riots, I wondered how the community would react, and now we see how they've reacted. This has been down to the tireless work of Love Your Doorstep and Emma Rigby. I would like to offer my thanks to all small businesses that have united, and Enfield can now be shown as an example to other towns and areas of how to bring together a community. This is something which has not been funded by the government, but by the community itself, and will continue to succeed." 2 Enfield clubs are set to reopen after they were closed following late-night brawls. The Maze Inn of Chayside in Southgate was closed on the 11th of February after a fight broke out in the early hours of February the 9th. Police documents stated that 2 men were assaulted in the club by 5 or 6 men that led to 1 man being taken to North Middlesex Hospital in Edmonton. At a licensing subcommittee at Enfield Borough Council's Civic Centre, conditions were agreed to reopen the club between 9 a.m. and 3 a.m. on Friday and Saturday nights. Manager of the Maze Inn, David Blackwood, said this was a regrettable and rare incident. He said, "Our record speaks for itself. Since taking charge, I have never had an incident like this, and indeed this was blown out of all proportion by initial eyewitnesses. 1 man hit his head on the floor and cut it open, and was not hit by a bottle. We have excellent relationships with the police, and they have told us we have a great record. No conditions have been imposed on our club, and whilst this is a regrettable incident, this is something we are confident will not happen again." The head of the Southgate Traders Association, Vic Smith of Vic Smith Beds in Chayside, also showed support to the club and said he was surprised by what had happened. He said, "This is very much unexpected from the Maze Inn. I've been there on a few occasions and the management have always been good. I do not believe this is a regular occurrence." Club 303 in Jute Lane, Enfield, will also reopen after a melee had erupted in the club at 5:25 in the morning of Saturday the 1st of February. The committee heard that up to 30 people had been involved in the brawl 2 hours after the club was scheduled to close. Council officers had to recommend that Club 303 should have its closing time brought forward to 11 p.m. instead of 3:30 a.m. But the committee did impose conditions of an ID scanner to be fitted at the club. The current licence holder has been removed. And we've now reached the end of side 1 of this tape. We'll have more for you on the side B, including sport, what's on, and some letters as well as more local news. So join us then. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over, and start side 2.